All right, last section in this hallway bookcase, and that'll be the last section in this hallway, except for one thing, but we'll do that next, I think. In this closet, this shelf of children's picture books. There'll probably be 3 or 4 videos. And we'll have looked at all the books in the hallway. Great, Mike. Who cares? The only books I read, man, are ancient fossils. If it's not like 500 million years old, I really don't want to read it. Prisma. I think this movie is factual, but I feel dirtied by it. I feel sullied. I think it's an Empire Blast propaganda. I'm like, cool, the CIA makes movies now. Mike Nichols? Oh, I thought I liked that director. And again, it's like good performances. Philip Seymour Hoffman. An interesting story, and it does have a lot of information in with its misinformation narrative, I would say. And it does have like a philosophical wide lens with the story of this Zen master that every time something good or bad happens says, we'll see if it's good or bad. Talking about the historic cycles of nature, etc. And like, to keep or not to keep. Interesting cinematic work. But I feel lied to in like a deceptive, massive way. Maybe it's also unsettling too, because it makes you think about a lot of political choices and so on. Speaking of drama. And this section does in fact include feature film screenplays and plays. Let's bust it out. I have a friend that almost drove a vehicle off a cliff recently, or drove a vehicle to jump off a cliff. Is that insensitive? Prisma. You have an advice column, so I can write you. Okay, so this is a high art film right here. This is incredible. Also has a great performance by Philip Seymour Hoffman, a lead performance. And it's magical realism, and it's amazing. It's so good. It's held up too. I watched it recently, and I was like, that's fantastic. That was a book that, not a book, a movie. See how I blur things in my mind? That is a movie that I just felt so altered by. Same with Adaptation from Charlie Kaufman. There's that bit in Cavalier and Clay where these comic creator characters go and see Citizen Kane in the theater, and they leave so inspired, and they do all these experimental storylines. Their characters. That's how I felt after seeing Adaptation. I think Charlie Kaufman is brilliant, yeah. It's a great movie, and I recently watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That's aged really well too. It does feel like a dated work, but it's like it's way good. I haven't kept up with his latter day stuff. Didn't love that Puppet movie, and I know he has a TV show that's supposed to be good. I got this screenplay because when I was first watching that movie, you know, you don't always know what times the scenes are. So it's the story of Synecdoche, New York, is that this playwright wins a MacArthur Genius Grant that's just infinite money, basically. And he gets this warehouse to recreate the entire city of New York so he can do like a 3-dimensional play, experimental theater piece about his life. But then because he's doing that, he has to mimic that within the play, and so they have to build a smaller warehouse within it and have people playing those people, and it gets super layered, and a lot of time passes, and there's some great performances and really heartbreaking stuff, and it's so interesting, and there's so many things to get out of this if you watch it. It really is literature. Like, there's the apartment that's always on fire, the house that's always on fire, because that's how it is in the memory. There's his wife's art getting smaller and smaller. Oh man, it's so interesting. This gets bigger and bigger. Wonderful film. In my top movies. Definitely in my top 100, probably in a higher bracket than that. Really wonderful film. Deep. Smart. People want to dismiss this stuff as pretentious. I think pretentious is the worst word. I'm like, don't ever use that in your criticism. Everything looks showy to somebody else. Should George Perec not have written a novel with no E? You know, come on. Art is all about experimentation and risks and risking looking dumb even. You know, a lot of things, it's like, why did someone do that? This is why it was a Picasso that said taste is the great enemy of art. I had the most wonderful literary conversation with my book group last night. We had a wonderful time. We did have a weird seance to try to summon the press club ghost with a Ouija board, and it was very interesting. Good vibes, though, all around. But afterward, we had the most awesome literary conversation, and I was like, I love that I can reference any book, and they know more than me somehow. Who are these people? So Ty, Jennifer, Marie, if you ever watch this, rock and roll. You guys are smart and cool. Anyway, love this. And this movie is full of great performances too. Whenever I write a script, I like to read other scripts, and I think screenplays should be read more widely. But like I said, I got this one to differentiate which times some of the times were set between, because I fanned out over that movie. I've got to order the screenplay. I did the opposite with this one. I got these and I read the scripts, and then I tracked down the movies and watched them, and that was a really cool experience. It's neat to read a script of a film and then see it performed. That is a cool experience. That's a really unique, cool, worthwhile art experience. If you've never had that, read a script. I think I'm coming down with allergies. I went to a Chipotle today, and I think I just breathed in all this wheat flour, and I have a gluten allergy. I had like a crazy sneezing fit there. So frail, I can't eat gluten. But John Sayles is great. I've always loved that movie Limbo. Limbo is great. Oh man, John Sayles has some surprising scripts that he's written in history, right? But Silver City is really good. Cool, kind of modern Western with the subject of immigration. Passion Fish is really good. How often do you get a major character in a film that's in a wheelchair the whole time? That's fantastic. And it's got this great New Orleans setting. I was just thinking of it recently when I was watching the movie Frogs. And you know you have a good story when you can read just the script and be moved to tears or whatever emotion the movie's going to evoke, because that was really what happened reading some of these scripts for me. I felt like, I could see these as good stories. I don't know. The formatting is not exactly what I do. I don't bold. I use Courier 12-point font. Korea New. It's weird. I was thinking about John Sayles, and I had read these and watched some of these movies. One or two were hard to find. And then I looked him up online, and I found his Twitter, and he was just right then going through New Mexico and documenting his road trip. I'm like, what? He's in this state? Felt like I was meant to meet him. Then I didn't. Great story, Mike. Season in the Sun. This is a famous play. Lorraine Hansberry. Yeah, this one has a sequel, too. I remember seeing the sequel performed at the Chemo. I'm sure the title was referencing that Langston Hughes poem. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it wither up and die like a raisin in the sun? Despite Quentin Tarantino continuing to be a human being on Earth who gives additional statements into the air, which I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. The guy has written some great movies, and I think Natural Born Killers is a good movie, but this is a really good script. This is a well-written, solid script. Like I said, when I write scripts, which I do sometimes, most recently a chapter of my book that was a 7-episode miniseries about walking across the country called What We Found When We Walked Across America. Netflix hit me up, HBO, Apple, non-fiction miniseries, but to be acted. This book is not a good help for formatting. That's not a properly formatted script there. It's formatted for this book. Okay, now we're getting into some classic drama. Beckett. I do think it's petty of Tarantino, though, to disown Oliver Stone's movie. I think he's very short-sighted sometimes with his work and how he talks about things. That said, he's made many movies that I really like, and I don't think any of his films are bad. I am upset that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is going to be getting a sequel from David Fincher using a Tarantino-developed script, because I think it's a bit Pauline Kael promoting. And she was just such a hoax writer. I really don't respect her as a critic. I think she was a fraud and a scholar, a false scholar. She faked all this stuff in this book-length essay that appears in the Citizen Kane book that I used to own. I think I got rid of it in disgust one time. Just like, I don't want this. during the purge when I got rid of lots of my books. I went from 11,000 down to whatever I have now, maybe 4,000 or 5,000. Probably more like 4. Even so, I've been making these videos for 9 months. I'm not done yet. Just describing the dumb collection. You're not dumb, I love you. You know, Beckett is great. Proves that if you just have a super poor apartment overlooking a prison and you go insane, you can write great stuff. No, he's just a real clear-eyed, philosophical, interesting person. People say Cormac McCarthy didn't evolve over his career from Faulkner to Hemingway in style. He did it from Faulkner to Beckett, and I think that's true. Beckett has got a lean thing going on, but he's funny. I watched this great multi-DVD set that I got from the library a couple of years ago, and it was just all of the adapted works of Beckett that had been filmed in some sort of movie version or another. And it was great. I finished that a super fan. There were some I liked even more than Waiting for Godot. It was just great. But I have a chapter of book 2 of my book, my epic 60-chapter memoir where every chapter is a different form, 2-volume, 4,000 pages. Book 1 is almost done. But I have a chapter of book 2 of that planned that is going to be a depressing play. I had a chapter of my life around the end of my first marriage where I said during an argument one time, this is like a depressing play. And it was, and so I have been kind of slowly, with that chapter in mind, ever since I first thought of it, which is one of the first chapters I thought of in my memoir project, so like 15 years ago. I've been acquiring plays that I think might help inform my work and further familiarize me with the format and teach me and show me the best of what there is out there, you know. In the paperback collection too, I have plays in trade site, or in, what do they call it, mass market paperback too. We'll take a glance at those at the end. Okay, I read this in a literature class with Ronald Shoemaker that I think I took in Dimension 659 because nobody else that I ever went to school with at UNM except my friend Lisa, who was in this class with me, heard of this guy, this professor. Even other teachers, I'd be like, Ronald Shoemaker teaches literature. This guy was old too. He wasn't some young TA or anything. But he blew my mind, and I think he blew my friend Lisa's mind too. She watches this channel. Hi, Lisa. But we read Tartuffe in that class, and I laughed so hard at this. I thought it was just so funny and fun and awesome, and I loved it. It was, look, this is translated by Richard Wilbur. I'm going to brag on my former brother-in-law, Philip White, real quick, because check this out. Back in the poetry section here, here's my former brother-in-law's book, The Clearing, Philip White poems. And look who gave him a blurb. Oh, and wrote like a little intro or something like that in this book. I first read Tartuffe in these Norton anthologies of world literature in that mystical class of Ronald Shoemaker's. Tartuffe, this is so funny. This is one of those stories, it's the classic, maybe the original story of a guest coming and never leaving. Ha ha ha. I also love just as much or more The Friend of the Family by Dostoevsky, which is his attempt at a story like that. I think this is I love this delicious, delightful novel of Dostoevsky. This is one of the 2 works he wrote in Siberia while out of the prison camp that he had been sentenced to, but he still had to do like military service in the area. And he wrote this, and he wrote The Insulted and the Injured during that time, which is a very interesting Dickensian one with a child star. And he writes the child very well. Unusual for him to have a young character like that. David Copperfield was one of the only books he had during his time of incarceration in translation. He was there because his group, the Petrushevsky Circle that he was part of as kind of a, socially conscious writer, was about to hand out leaflets advocating the freeing of the serfs. Yeah, can you tell I like Dostoevsky? Love him. But The Friend of the Family is a hard one to find in a standalone book. Like, this is like an antique volume that I had to track down to find that one on its own. It's more often in like collections of 3 or 4 of his shorter works. Chekhov, everybody says, and they're right. He's great at short stories, great at plays. Study this guy. But I must admit, I don't know his work as well as I should. 12 Angry Men, that's a cool edition. Oh, that could be on that one shelf, but it's a play. I, of course, like the old black and white movie of this one. I love that ending where they finally exchange names at the end. It's great. I still need one more of these because I want to put on this play with me and my 3 cats We each need a copy. So at the moment we only have 2. Sweetie was trying to share with Squirrel, but the cats are very territorial. And, you know, they want their own copy of everything and so on. Sorry, Prism, I'll get another copy. For now, you could at least, you or Sweet Pea or whoever, could read this other Arthur Miller, Death of a Salesman. Familiarize yourself with the guy's style, you know. Anyway, it's been a real issue here in the apartment. Eugene, he had a long day's journey tonight. But isn't there another book also with that title? By Celine? Oh no, Journey to the End of the Night. I've heard bad things about you, Celine. Good about your talent, bad about you as a person. Long day's journey tonight, journey to the end of the night. Let's be honest, those are 2 good titles. Eugene O'Neill. I just watched the movie Reds, and he's a character in it. And though apparently like loosely based on how he actually looked. I really liked that movie Reds. It was great. Real historical glimpse at the early communist movements in America. And it's so clever. It's actually a hybrid work. It has documentary interviews with people that were there and knew these people spliced throughout, but without any names or labels. So it really leaves you feeling uncertain. Reds is oh man, that's an excellent movie. Recent new fave. Yeah, I think I'm going to start a DVD channel sometime. If I can figure out how to have 2 different YouTube channels without like losing one somehow. Because I like movies too. It's fun to talk about movies too, probably. Maybe then I'll have a friend. Martin Wilder, Our Town. I don't know much about this one. Okay, this is like one of the most beautiful books I own. And I love Robbie Gray. And I was just watching that movie Sideways, and they reference Robbie Gray in that. I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen a movie Robbie Gray was referencing. This is for a movie. And it's actually a really beautifully visually formatted script. Look at this beautiful object. 1962. Our 1962 paperbacks, just my favorite books. I think so. Robbie Gray. You amazing freak. I particularly love his book Jealousy. That's just such, that was like my writing school, that book. That book exploded like a bomb in my consciousness. I bet I could name like 10 interesting things that this novel Jealousy does. It's always paired with In the Labyrinth, but I just think of Jealousy. I've owned a standalone copy of it before, but I always give it away because it's so good. Look, these covers are kind of funny. It's like he's looking through the blinds. What's he looking at? Oh, he's being creepy. Okay, cut it out there, buddy. But I love the French New Wave. I love Duras and Gray, Robbie Gray especially. So good, so good. Books are cool. You can't read everything. Sometimes hanging out with my writing group, I'm like, y'all just have read so much stuff that I've never read. I'm like, oh shoot, that's like a whole subgenre someone just mentioned I've never read. But like in this book, it's told in first person, but with no first person pronouns. What? Who does that? That's incredible. It's told in such meticulous detail that every single room is described to you. And if a corner is not described, you feel like, why aren't you describing it? I think my favorite passage in this book is like a 2.5-page long description of somebody brushing their hair. There's a really elaborate description of a banana forest. There's this centipede that's described smashed on the wall over and over again from all these different angles in the room around it. And the way that the author talks around the first person thing, the narrative voice, without using first person pronouns, is so interesting and fun and cool. And the closeness of detail, did I even mention that? It is so detailed. I love it. Prismo loves this book. Every time I talk about this book, Prismo just is there suddenly. She has strong opinions about it. But what's so interesting about it and why he does that third person, no first person pronoun stuff thing is because you think you have an impartial narrator because it feels so close to a third person narrator. Like if the characters are sitting down to eat, they'll say, and now, everyone sits down to eat, and describe 3 plates really in detail, but mention that there are 4 plates somewhere. It's way interesting. But so you think you're getting this objective portrait, but the husband character is getting increasingly jealous of this visitor to this plantation that he lives out with his wife. And that is seeping into the story and the voice, and you're coming to share it as a reader. This book is like super interesting. It's so cool and really makes me respect Robbie Gray. I've read it a few times over the years, and I'm a big fan. I was a young reader not knowing what to read. Like, I guess I should read Garrison Keillor. I think I literally turned 21 around this time. I remember we went to the Druid pub in Cambridge, but I was hanging out with this woman a lot who later became a girlfriend, and she had been taking college classes. She was like, we read this really experimental book I think you would love. And she gave me a copy of Jealousy in the Labyrinth. And I did. It blew my mind. And it's awesome. I mean, you know, maybe now everybody knows everything, but it's like, I remember an era of discovery where you would like, you didn't know what to read, you know? That's Robbie Gray. That's off to him. He also has a work that omits a letter through the whole book. I think it's Erasers. Was that George Perec too? I forget. But look how beautifully this script is packaged with, again, not a good example of the form if you're trying to type a script yourself, but I use Microsoft Word on my screenplays, and apparently you really can't do that. Paul Thomas Anderson, the director, does, and I love and admire him, but apparently everybody else expects your work to be easily copied with Final Cut Pro so it can be altered and distributed and all that stuff. So you really need to get one of these screenwriting programs. So, I hope when I get one, it's easily convertible. When I have money in my life, I'll do that. William Gibson. Not the William Gibson of Neuromancer. I looked it up. Nope. Different William Gibson. Played by William Gibson, the Miracle Worker. Now, some of you might know that Arthur Penn's first movie was a movie adaptation of this. Story of Helen Keller. Truly unique, amazing person that lived in complete darkness and silence and learned her way out of it to become a radical anarchist feminist. She's pretty awesome. And it's a beautiful, amazing story. And working in the blind community, which I have before as a driver, etc., Helen Keller gets cited a bit. They also talk about Annie, her teacher, a lot, who was also an only partially sighted individual. She was visually impaired. Okay, now we're getting into the beautiful books. Story of My Life by Helen Keller. Her and Louis Braille are probably the two most famous figures you hear about historic in the blind community. 12-year-old kid who invented Braille in France. I'm ashamed to say it, but this cat has done nothing for the blind community. Nothing. Nothing! You either, Prismo. I bet you would if you had the opportunity. Gotta give him that. One of the funniest memes is, I had to do it to him. Just this guy standing on the sidewalk wearing Dockers with like a preppy shirt. Posing. I heard this name pronounced and I was saying it right for a while. Was it Aeschylus? This incredible cover. I mean, what? Okay, this is the 1973 printing of a 1953 edition. Yeah, it's kind of got that 50s vibes, but look at that. It's the University of Chicago Press, $1.95. Huh. Where'd you come from, little book? We're in Albuquerque. Well, I've got some Aeschylus in the paperback project, in the mass market paperback case, which I'll be reading. Look how cool this is. I have this book, 7 Famous Greek Plays, which has plays by, let's see here, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, and Aristophanes. And then I have books by those 4 right after it. So I'm going to read all those 5 in the same go sometime. This is my favorite case in the house, and the last one I'll be looking at because it's the one I'm trying to read all of over the course of from now until when I drop dead. Squirrel is so gratefully modeling for me. Thank you, Squirrel. I was just talking about dropping dead, and then you flopped to demonstrate it. I appreciate that. Prismo, you were cheering her on. That's so nice. Encourage your children's dramatic chops, and I appreciate that. That's nice. That's me. We all yearn for more innocent times. The halcyon days of our youth. I found all these photos in abandoned buildings. Those aren't my youth. But that one is. What do you think of the French New Wave, Squirrel? Well, I love it. Duras and Robbie Gray are my faves. Here's another beautifully presented 60s paperback. Oh, wow. Wow. So beautifully presented with images. Cool. Again, not an example of formatting, but also I just want this because I like to draw. It's interesting because when she was young, she really young, 14 or 15, I think, she had a relationship with an older guy and wrote this story about it. But she's rewritten it 3 or 4 different times, and that's kind of interesting to see a writer approach the same real life event multiple times and what to do with it. like Trent Harris in his movie, the Beaver Trilogy, in which one scene gets repeated and reinvented. One story, anyway. Yeah, but she's got this great lean style. Apparently, it's a drunken style, and she was always drunk. There's another copy of Robbie Gray, Jealousy and Labyrinth. This is the one that I was given long ago. And now so far away. Carpenters wrote that song about it, and we lost that lawsuit over the royalties. Part's not true. Yeah, this is like the same story as The Lover, basically. Destroy, She Said is really the one I want from her. I read that back in the day with the AV Club's Wrapped Up in Books Club. Got a lot out of it and really liked the movie version too. As one of my favorite endings. She directed the movie version. She wanted books so lean that they could be their own screenplays. Interesting. What's funny with the new wave types is they always tried to like extrapolate and find universal laws to what they were doing. Robbie Gray's book for a new novel in my writing book section. Now, if everyone wrote like that, that'd be kind of sad. Like, he didn't believe in symbolism. I think he kind of did, but he wanted like intentional symbolism to not be there so that unconscious things would come to the surface. He's a very interesting writer to read. But that book has challenged me, I guess, because I've read it a couple times and not much from it has stuck with me. This is an amazing biography of Marguerite Duras. This is one of the best literary biographies I've ever read. I loved it. So good. Please, when I die, can I have somebody this generous write about my life? She's presented so fairly. There's times in her life where she seems like she's living in a depressed world of debauched excess. And like kind way all that is written about this is a really beautiful biography. Alain Vircondelet. And it's really all about her themes and the void, and it ties together all her work in such a good way. Marguerite Duras, she's awesome. Destroy, She Said, so good. It's criminal that you can't find that movie version easily. Another play for my reading research and background and knowledge of needed for when I write my play chapter. I used to have a title for that chapter, but I can't remember what it is now. I bet I've written it down somewhere. Oh, was it going to be called The Elm House? Yep. Okay, so out in the desert once, I discovered, or co-discovered, a building with stone corners and partial stone walls and some adobe walls, that the roof had burned off, but the walls had remained intact. This was on the edge of the ghost town of Hagen, New Mexico, at the north end of the Sandia Mountains, at the very far edge. I came to think it was the blacksmith's house because of something I had read in a book about Hagen, and because of all of the evidences of ironwork that I found around there, around a big fire pit. This book about Hagen. See the New Mexico Books videos to see my review on that one, where I get it out and look at it. But I called it the Elm House because it had completely filled with invasive trees, many of which I thought were elms originally, but were actually trees of heaven. So it's the same tree that A Tree Grows in Brooklyn is about, you know, that phrase from A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Here's an antique copy. Jewel from Mother. Happy birthday, May 24th, 1944. There's a tree that grows in Brooklyn. Some people call it the tree of heaven. No matter where its seed falls, it makes a tree which struggles to reach the sky. It grows in boarded up lots and out of neglected rubbish heaps. It grows up out of cellar gratings. It is the only tree that grows out of cement. It grows lushly, survives without sun, water, and seemingly without earth. It would be considered beautiful, except that there are too many of it. But anyway, we called it the Elm House because it was like an indoor forest crowded in there. One time I could see a bit of a soap wrapper stuck in the adobe, and it said, I think, 1906. So that's when it dates to. But I always called it the Elm House. But then, cut to, I gave my daughter Anodyne for her birthday one year this lithograph of a house that was completely full of trees, and the trees were growing out the window and out the roof. And then that house where I lived at the time, toward the end of my first marriage, we were always fighting the invasive trees in the front lawn and on the side of the house. They just kept coming back, and their roots were everywhere. Got into everything. And if you let them take root in the lawn, then it's like a really bad deal. They'll quickly take over a whole yard, and then you'll just have like a really hardwood forest in front of your house. So I think a depressing play about that time in my life called The Elm House, I think that title would be really appropriate. I'll tie all those different elements I was just talking about together. I've got a lot to think about that chapter, though. Since been divorced again, might include flash forwards to it happening a second time. It's almost like characters going multiverse. Stakes feel changed. The commentary different. Did love in the Serge Gainsborough documentary, biopic, which is not a hagiography. He looks kind of bad in a lot of that movie. Not when it would just cut from one scene to the next. Like he would be talking to his wife and then it would cut and he'd be talking to a different wife and it'd be years later. Anyway, book 2. Writing a giant memoir, a maximalist memoir that looks at every chapter of your life is absolutely harrowing. I don't know if it's made me better or just made me so self-aware that I'm just like evil now. Always a risk. Beware when you gaze into the abyss, right? Friedrich gazes back or something. Anyway, almost Maine. I love Maine. I walked across Maine once. I'm a big fan of Maine. A rustic county with its potato farms. It'd just be potatoes lying all over the roads where the trucks dropped them accidentally. Huge county for the East Coast. Okay, here's one I know nothing about. Congreve, The Way of the World. When I see a classic, anything packaged like that, why wouldn't I get that? I don't know if it's good or not. It's part of the big tapestry of things, and people thought enough to keep it alive for whatever reason. I think that should be listened to, apparently. Okay, this guy was born in 1670. He leads, so he's a British playwright from that time. He only wrote about cheese. Huh. Again, for the play collection, for that chapter. And I've been reading books about drama writing, too. I gave one of my best drama books by Lajos Egri away, The Art of Dramatic Writing. I wish I still had that, but it went to a good person, to the local playwright. Not just local, she's winning awards and stuff now, Maria Aaron Jones, who's a real hustler that also founded Zine Fest and is a talented musician. I probably got some other books about dramatic writing. I know I do on this case somewhere. It's all one big thing to me. I want to be like Mobius, that visual artist who influenced like every visual medium that existed. You know, I want to draw from everything. I want to break down doors. I want to not think about distinctions too much. I want to tell the stories the way I want to tell them, make it as cool and interesting and original and innovative and whatever. And then we'll all die like the end of Rogue One. As always, bad environmental advice, good life advice. Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path. Leave a trail. Oh yeah. This isn't even a play. You put it in the wrong section, you fool. You absolute fool. It's a novel. It's got an 11-year-old protagonist, but it's not for younger readers. Okay, The Ice Palace by Torjel Vesas. A modern classic. A Nordic Council Prize. They go to an ice palace, a giant structure formed by a frozen waterfall. That sounds fun to read about. I regard The Ice Palace as the best book we have ever published. Peter Allen, wow. Peter Allen, Modern Classes. The imprint is named after him, I guess. Chew away later. Squirrel, what's that? Even getting rid of one book from the wrong section is like bettering this collection, you know? Exactitude in some small matters really is the very soul of discipline. Thank you, Conrad. And wait, who wrote this? Woody Allen. I'm throwing this in the trash. I did not know that. I picked this up from a free pile because I saw the title and thought it was going to be referencing Casablanca. I think Woody Allen sucks. I think he's a pedophile rapist. I've never wanted to do anything to give him money. And I don't care if this is worth money or whatever. I'm going to throw it away. I was just talking about my collection being a bonsai collection. There's a lot of bad people in the world. Some of them write books. Some of them even write good books. I just don't want to have any part in sanitizing this guy. I can spot an epic lie sometimes. For instance, I've read enough about film and been enough around film to know how much directors love and think about the magic hour or the golden hour. It's that special time around dawn and dusk when everything gleams gold for just about 15 minutes. And directors would love to have their every outdoor shot during that time, so everything just pops on screen and looks amazing, as long as it works with the events of the movie. Those terms are very, very familiar. Even people whose extent of involvement with movies, just listening to podcasts or something about them, would know that. And there was a discrediting interview that Woody Allen gave where he talked about his, who was it? She was the stepdaughter. I don't want to say the names because I might get it wrong. But the stepdaughter, he later married Man, this guy. But she said that he would take her to the attic and commit his crimes there. And she said it was during the golden hour, the magic hour. And in an interview, he said, "What's this nonsense she's talking about? Who even knows what those phrases are? That's a kid making things up." Like, no, we know exactly what those times are. And a kid growing up in a movie-making household would know what those terms are. I think this guy sucks. And I remember we read, when I was first in college, when I was 17 and 18 years old, Enid, I like this a lot. Phil, well, have better standards. Orson Welles hated Woody Allen. He listened to his instinct on this guy. I kind of want to detach this from that book, but it's sullied. Right, so, drama. Well, that's nice. We looked at some drama, but check it out. Also got a whole case of Shakespeare. By and about. Oh, I love Shakespeare. That's all drama right there. I still don't have all the Shakespeare. Drama is a weird thing because it's like you're reading something that's kind of incomplete, you know? But it's still great. I think more people should read screenplays too. The goal is to have a mass market paperback sized copy of every one of Shakespeare's plays. I've only got like 10 or so left, I think. But also, these are plays. Pirandello is great. I have now read 6 Characters in Search of an Author and watched a documentary about him and read articles about him and started reading another one, Leola, in this one, and I will get back to that soon. Pirandello and Beckett, probably the 2 most important 20th century playwrights, except for maybe, I think I've heard, this guy, Brecht. And real experimental, form experimenting. Milan Kundera wrote about him a lot in The Art of the Novel. A lot of Ibsen here. Ibsen brought realism to drama. I'll be reading these as part of the paperback project too. He wrote about ordinary people sometimes and found the drama in just their daily lives. Had a gabbler, a cleaning woman. I grew up listening to the audiobook of Matilda over and over from Roald Dahl, and so I always hear in my head, "It's not rubbish, Daddy. It's lovely. It's called The Red Pony." Got these Greek plays here. Oh yeah, classics going way back. I love when you read Aristotle's Poetics, he's like, plays are way better since they changed them from 1 to 2 people. Here's a play riffing off of Hamlet, which I've got here also. Oh, and Twelfth Night. Yeah, 2 of the Shakespeares I put here because I had multiple copies of those. And then Rosencrantz is a Tom Stoppard play riffing off of Hamlet about some of its minor characters. I've got something I want to write about Crime and Punishment called Razumikin and Dunya Are in Love. And it'll front and center the killer's sister and his friend and their romance and put the murder in the background. That's in the foreground in Crime and Punishment. It's going to be awesome. I think I'll write it as a play. Maybe as a novella. Oh, I read this as part of the paperback project. There's a video about it. This is by Paul Zindel, author of The Pig Man. The Effect of Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds. Cool bit of 70s art. There's something to be found there for sure. These aren't plays, they're poetry. Edgar Lee Masters, the Spoon River books, but they are often used as monologues, and they're amazing. And Squirrel's right, there's one more. At least, A Delicate Balance by Edward Albee. This one's near and dear to my heart because when I was walking across the country long ago with a charity hike, like crap, this video was long. I had no idea. I'm sorry, everybody. We found a copy of this, and we just all randomly put it on one day when we were hanging around someone's house. Let's go remember. There's that other copy of it. I'm going to Mod Podge these. Ornamental wall art. Well, might as well add 2 more minutes, make it a 40-minute video. Anyway, drama. Do you have it in your collection? What's your relation to it? How does it feel different than your other books, your other art? You know what I bet also? I think I took all the drama out of this section. So this has been kind of become, it's just novels and short stories now. Maybe I'll take the short stories out sometime. If I ever have an extra case somewhere. All right, I'm working on my books afterward. Got the intro done. Now I just need to do the afterward and finish 1 chapter that involves getting 7 interviews, but I'll get them. I'll knock it out. I'll figure it out. All right, I'm going to write some more. Kind of don't know what to do with myself right now, but I'll figure it out. Oh, yeah. Well, all right, if anyone watching this channel wants to throw a miracle my way, I'm at Michael Farrell Smith on PayPal. Send me some money and I'll send you a book, seriously. And I'll mention you in this book if you want. At Michael Farrell Smith on PayPal. MichaelFarrellSmith on PayPal. Better rest, Mike. All right, Squirrel. Well, Good job being cute, squirrel. We're all very proud of you.